Now, Yogi Berra once said, if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. And I've been told in the past that every good presentation has a quote in it. So there's my quote, like it or not. Anyway, let's get started. Why is an investigation plan essential? Well, it forms the backbone of the investigation. It provides structure that's going to guide you the rest of the way through the investigation and creates a blueprint. Once you have a handle on the issues, it's going to let you know what information you need to gather. Another benefit of it is that it assists or obliges the investigator to consider certain aspects of the case, the scope of the investigation, identifying issues that might require investigation, determining which information is relevant, establishing timelines for the investigation, ensuring that the investigation moves forward in a proper fashion. And in terms of ensuring that the investigation moves forward, it really can provide important evidence to explain or justify decisions in the context of a challenge. So at some point, if your investigation interview or investigation process is challenged, you can go back to your plan where you'll have notes of what you did, why you did it, why you made certain decisions. All of these things are incredibly important and can be helpful. In terms of planning considerations, first thing you have to consider is what's the scope of the investigation. Consider whether you have an enabling statute or case law in your jurisdiction that confines the scope of the investigation. In most cases, you cannot and really should not decide to investigate outside the scope. And this is a problem that I've seen in many investigation reports that I've reviewed. New information, can come up. Sometimes this changes things. Sometimes it may result in a whole new investigation being started. But these are the types of things that should be considered very carefully. What specific issues are you requiring or require investigation? There's professional standards in place that might help you determine what evidence you need to gather. What materials are presently available for the review? Start with what you currently know, or what you have in front of you. Then start asking yourself the question, what don't I know based on this information, and how am I going to find out? Logistical considerations. How much time is going to be required to do this investigation? How many people are involved? Am I going to have to travel for this investigation? Do I anticipate any obstacles or challenges to the investigation? All of these are things that are going to come into your mind while you're going through the process of planning. What do the statutory provisions require? You have to be familiar with your governing legislation and assume that you're operating under a formal authority. This may affect timing in some investigation processes. For example, in Ontario, if you're working for a health regulator, there are timelines that have to be considered that are really legislated guidelines in terms of when things have to be completed. So these are obviously good things to incorporate into your plan. Should you consult with others? Could be managers or colleagues who may have experience with a similar type of investigation and can give you some advice. It might be legal counsel who might want to chime in with some helpful advice or direction. It could be another statutory body that is worth consulting with to gather additional information. And this should be an ongoing question throughout your investigation. Too many times I've seen investigators making decisions unilaterally that really should involve others, and we can talk a little bit more about that later as this presentation unfolds. What evidence is going to be required to assess whether an incident or certain type of conduct occurred? Break it down. Consider how you can prove or disprove each element of the issue at hand. Again, a good plan is going to help you give thought to these things in advance. Oftentimes, timing issues are dictated by strategy. Concerns about the availability of evidence. Might it be destroyed? Do you have a limited period of accessibility? If possible, maybe you want to gather some evidence before the subject is even aware of the investigation. If you've got concerns about destruction of evidence, that would be an important consideration. Timing issues are sometimes dictated by the seriousness of an issue. In some cases, we need to consider, if our failure to act quickly might create some sort of legal or other liability. Could you be sued for not dealing with the matter quickly enough? Will press be critical if you're too slow? Will the public lose confidence? All of these are things that are important considerations in determining what the timing of the investigation will be.